Dispenser going up.
Shit.
What the fuck?
Welcome to Bad Weapon Academy, where we take a look at the worst weapons TC2 has to offer, and I show you how to best utilize them. I'm hyper aware of how stupid it is that I'm copying Fish's Bad Weapon Academy format, but I'm genuinely passionate about this topic because it's on a front closer to home to me. That's right, the ex-engineer main is going to rant about a mediocre mechanic weapon for 10 minutes. Buckle your fuckles everyone, this is going to be a real doozy. Today I'm going to be covering what I consider to be the most underwhelming mechanic weapon, and quite possibly the worst passive item in the game. What I mean by worst isn't that it's poorly designed, by no means am I saying that, but rather its only upside it has is kind of useful at best and could be a downright detriment in most other scenarios outside of its intended use. The heavy metal, while sounding good on paper, really isn't what it's cracked up to be, despite literally everyone telling me, someone with over 3 years of engineer experience under my belt, otherwise. The majority of those people are using the heavy metal for a purpose outside of what I believe the item was designed for, but I'll get to that later. Now don't get me wrong, the concept itself is a really interesting one, and I haven't even seen this explored with custom weapons in TF2 to my knowledge anyways. Even the wiki says that this is an entirely original weapon, and as much as I'm sure that this concept was grabbed from elsewhere, not unlike other weapons such as the Airborne Annihilator, the Incendiary Cadet, and on a front closer to home, the Southern Hospitality. Despite it seeming unique to the game though, the only upside in this thing is so inconsequential that it's not often worth the effort to equip it outside of quickly and consistently setting up a nest. See, what I think this weapon was designed for was to sustain your buildings by keeping spare metal around in case you either need to rebuild quickly or hold your ground in an ambush. So how does it do that exactly? Let's have a look under the hood and see what this puppy can do. That shouldn't take long because it only has one stat, and that's an extra 100 metal capacity, leaving you topped off at 300 max metal. I should make a note here that the previous iteration of the heavy metal just had a 15% slower move speed, which was just icing on the fucking cake for how mediocre this was, but anyway. There are a couple of things on this weapon that are just not listed for whatever reason, so let's take a dive and see what's in here. While the heavy metal can alleviate a lot of stress when you quickly need to set up a defensive hold or upgrade a building, ammo packs just are not affected by this unlock, nor do you get any extra metal for dispensers. So you pretty much get the same amount of metal you would as if you didn't have this thing on. I'm not really sure if this is a bug or a glitch, but what I am sure of is that this weapon is basically crippled in more ways than one because of it, and this unlisted downside alone can make it hard to remember why you have this equipped in the first place. This is a pretty big problem because, at least to me, Mechanic's other secondaries can play a major role in his playstyle. So by giving up the reliable long-range damage of the pistols, the quick and easy metal restoration factor of the Noisy Cricket, and the ultimate defensive capabilities of the Wrangler, you have only but your shotgun and your wrench to defend yourself, as is the nature of passive items. A big issue that many passive items have is that you can sometimes forget they exist, so oftentimes you can run into a situation where you try to pull out your secondary as you're running right, and then you remember, oh fuck, oh shit, I don't have a pistol, before being ass blasted to the moon. This issue is especially potent and way more detrimental for the heavy metal than most people realize because it just doesn't provide any benefit to you that could be tangible outside of just building. And on top of that, it doesn't really shake up your playstyle much at all. All this really does outside of setup time is make you marginally better at turtling your buildings, a strategy I often find brain dead just cause how easy it is to plop a dispenser next to your ass and single-handedly lock down a choke point with very little effort. Now that's not to discredit those who are efficient in tactical turtling, but those mechanics who actually know how to play the class and use and abuse the dispensers like this, you know who you are. TLDR, what the heavy metal provides is just outweighed by most of Mechanic's other active secondaries because it offers too little to warrant switching to this. In layman's terms, unless you're playing hyper defensively, unless you have a competent team to back you up, or unless you're using the Widowmaker, it's better to have any other secondary equipped because the heavy metal does very little, if anything at all, to aid you in most situations, unlike every other passive item in the game. Let's look at a few examples. Well, okay, a few is probably an understatement, but super sneakers, the winger, the banners, the gunboats, the mantreads, the escape plan, the improvised innovator, the escapist escapade, the squire boots, the cowboy greaves, olive brooch coils, olive marksman's backpacks, the overdrive, the amputator, and the icicle. They all give passive buffs to the wearer in question that can aid them in the heat of battle. Other than giving you 100 extra metal, this thing just doesn't do anything. I mean, like, whoa, I have an extra 100 metal in reserve. It's not like I can totally nullify the existence of this weapon by finding a medium ammo pack from a corpse or on the map. Like I said in my most recent mechanic weapons to this video, link in description by the way, I see the heavy metal as nothing more than just a pair of training wheels. Like, yeah, it can help newer mechanics get familiar with the class and help them learn to manage their metal better, but once you understand most of the fundamentals of the mechanic class and the concept of metal management, this is little more than a cool looking backpack that just so happens to take a weapon slot. But hey, at least you can cosplay as a cool little steampunk guy with this and the greaseworker. So other than looking like a total badass, how can you make the most out of this? I really don't want to say it because I hate the ever-letting shit out of a brainless turtling mechanic, but this is basically a turtling mechanic's best friend, I'd say. Pairing this with the Eureka effect, the Jag, or the Moving Man can very easily help you establish a quick and easy defensive hold without barely ever needing to find an ammo pack. This isn't really helpful in setup time during the start of a round because all of your buildings are going to be level 3, but having it equipped can still be useful if the enemy team manages to push forward immediately. Just be sure to switch off of it after you've set up or after the enemy team's made their push as to help support yourself and your team later on. Now arguably the best way to utilize the heavy metal is to pair it with the Widowmaker and the Gunslinger. Not only can you fire an additional 3 shots as a safety net in case you happen to whiff your shots, which solves the problem of not having an impact in combat, you can easily place all your buildings in one go without ever needing to find an ammo pack. If you really want to get crazy, try enlisting the aid of a Pocket Crits Creek doctor and see how high of a coast you can get. Cause let's be honest, Widowmaker crates are fucking insane. With all that being said though, there's just not that much going for it outside of those two situations. So, how do we fix it? I actually have quite a few solutions. If the plus 100 max metal is staying, fix it to where you can get more metal from ammo packs and dispensers so scavenging is more effective, and bam! It's already looking a lot more tempting to use. Otherwise, there's a couple more options you can go with if you want to rework it a bit. The first one, and most likely the easier one to implement, is to add another upside of regenerating ammo and metal over time, similar to how Doctor can regenerate health. This would make it so that you can have a constant supply of metal streaming in on top of the bonus metal capacity you already have, making it much more viable for holding your ground. To balance this, you can make it so that you don't get metal and ammo from dispensers in the payload cart, as a constant stream of metal from a bunch of sources would make this a little too strong. Another idea I had, and this one's a lot more radical, is to turn the heavy metal into a portable dispenser. Basically, if your teammates are around you, they get healed and replenish ammo from the dispenser on your back, making aggressive engineer plays a lot more viable. Another downside I had for this was where you can't build your own dispensers, obviously enough, so it makes it where that you are your own dispenser. If any of these ideas don't really fit your fancy, this is essentially a blank slate where anything goes if you remove that 100 max metal stat, and I'm sure you guys in the comments will have a lot more creative ideas for this weapon. It's such a shame that the heavy metal is this underwhelming. It has so much untapped potential to rival that of the Wrangler in terms of being a defensive and supportive tool, but just misses the mark in every way. I really wish I could find a better way to make this hunk of junk a lot more useful, but until Rolf actually listens to someone with valuable and critical feedback about their weapons and balancing, go out there and pretend you're the perfect steampunk prodigy and tell him Dark sent you.